Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmercedcoder.com, and this is a first in a series of videos about the DOM. Okay, the document object model, and just using JavaScript in front-end code to manipulate the DOM. So over this series, we're going to do things about creating, about selecting, about events, about forms, and then specifically about the jQuery library and how to use that as well. So we're going to cover a lot of ground over a lot of videos because it's such a loaded topic. But first, let's just kind of discuss the premise of the topic. So the best way to do that is just actually create an HTML file. So new file, index.html. I am using a Visual Studio Code here, Visual Studio Code. And essentially inside of Visual Studio Code, once I have an HTML file, I can use Emmet to quickly generate all the boilerplate by just using the exclamation point. Okay, and here I go. I have this boilerplate of my HTML. So notice this tag here that says doc type. Basically, that's just telling the browser what kind of document this is. That's the whole term document object model. So the idea here is that there is a document that the browser is going to read, and it's going to create an object, a JavaScript object, which we can manipulate. Okay, which is made up of many more JavaScript objects. So it's like a big tree. So what I'm going to do first, we're going to use just inline JavaScript. So that means I'm just going to create a script tag here. I'm going to write my JavaScript right in my HTML file. Generally, you won't do this too often because oftentimes you end up writing so much JavaScript that it's kind of messy to write it in your HTML file. But just to show you some basic examples of what we're talking about, this is sort of the best way, one of the best ways. So each HTML element, so body is one HTML element, script is one HTML element, title is another HTML element, head is another HTML element. Okay, each of these are referred to as a node in JavaScript. Okay, so using the DOM API, the DOM features in JavaScript, we'll be able to grab these nodes, manipulate these nodes. So you have to imagine the tree. So imagine like this tree, the top of the tree is this HTML tag. And then then the first branches are head and body. And then the head has other branches which include these meta tags and that title tag. So title is the child of head, and head is the parent of title. HTML is the parent of everything. So HTML is the parent of head and body. Head is the parent of title, and title has no children, just some text inside of it. Okay? And what would be the child is always inside the element. So again, every element has an opening and a closing tag. So the children be what's inside of the opening and closing tag. Just some sort of terminology to kind of set the stage. But let's just say we want to have this H1 here. H1, and right now it's empty. Okay? The JavaScript to access the DOM API is all kind of done through the document. So the document represents, well, literally the document. Okay? So let's access document.body. Okay, I'm going to console log document.body so we can see this at work. Okay, and document.body is literally this thing. I'm grabbing this node. So I'm going to right click this and open this up in Live Server in the browser. I'm going to open up the Chrome DevTools. Okay, and you can see that when I console log document.body, it's the entire body tag. Okay, so we can use that as sort of a starting point. Now, right now we see that document.body has two children, the H1 and the script tag. So if we change this to document.body.children, okay, or child nodes, actually we'll just use children. Let's see what we get. See, now I get this type of object called an HTML collection. It's a list of different things that are within the HTML, and I can see there's an H1. I can see there's a script tag, which is our script tag, and then there's a script tag here, which was injected by a live server, so we'll ignore that one. But notice that H1 is the first child node within the body tag. And then in here, I can see that each HTML node has lots and lots and lots of properties. Okay, so that's essentially what comes along with trying to like master working with a DOM. You're never going to use all these properties, and probably a lot of these properties will still be unknown to you for a long, long time, because most of them don't get used that often. But you see all these ones that start with on, these are events. So these are different events that can get triggered, and you'll be able to do stuff when those events happen. So like when it's on a double click, on a click, when someone does a copy on the event element, all these sorts of events. It's a lot of events, so you have a lot of granular control on what can happen when. And then you can see like here's like the parent element, so we can access a parent element from a node. We can access the children like we did a second ago. There's all these ARIA properties, which are more for like accessibility. So for when people who with different disabilities are using like alternative mechanisms to like browse a website, this will oftentimes like provide like text or provide motion type stuff, so that way they can enjoy the website. So lots of different properties. We'll talk about a lot of these different properties as we go on, but you can see here like there's class lists, so you can see like classes you've added to the element, etc. So we can see that that these nodes have lots of properties. Okay. Oh, that's all well and good. Now here's the thing. It would take forever for me to keep going like document.body.children, and then if I want to grab the h1, you know, I'd have to be like dot things like item 0, I think. Let me just try that out. Yep, that would get me the h1. And then from there, if I want to get the h1's children, I have to do like dot children again. Like this would end up being very monotonous. Okay, so what if I just want to grab one particular node to just get it done? You know, I just want to grab the node. Well, we'll talk about that in a moment. But basically, this is kind of how it works. So everything's really kind of stemming from the document. I can access the body tag from the document. And then I could theoretically work my way through the tree through there. So I can grab the h1, and if the h1 has children, I can grab its children and take a look at its children. It goes on and on and on. But there are some easier ways to traverse the tree, and that's what traverse means. Traverse means to travel in a data structure, and the document object is really a tree. It's a branching tree. So again, there was the body. The body has a bunch of branches. H1 was one of the branches, and then that might have more branches, etc. So now that we've kind of established that, let's move this code outside of our HTML file. So let's create a JavaScript file. Call it app.js. And now I'm going to move my code into there. There we go. I'll remove this here. Now, now the way you link an external JavaScript file is by doing this. Okay, script source, and then we'll say, hey, I want to link to app.js. And this will link and bring in the external JavaScript file. Okay, now here's the problem. If I look at this, it says cannot read property children of null. Why? Well, because an HTML file is read from the beginning to the bottom. So the body doesn't exist till down here, but the script is read up here. So this causes a problem. And there's going to be 3 ways to deal with this problem. The first way, the old way you could deal with this problem, is I could just load the script tag at the bottom of the body. This would work, because technically the body is now read into the DOM before the script tag technically got ran. So see, it works. That's fine. That's fine and good. My issue with this is that now we have options, and ideally we want to keep all our sort of non-visual tags in the head. So that way we can more mentally think of the head as the place where all the non-visual stuff happens, and the body where the visual stuff happens. So I could also move it here. And what I could do is that in my JavaScript, anything that I want to do with the DOM, I could grab the window object. The window is an object that represents the browser. Okay, and then I can do on load. Yep. On load, and on load is an event of is a function that gets run when the window loads. So then what I could do is literally wrap my entire DOM code in this function. So just pass an arrow function there, and put this in there. This will also work. So see that also works, because what this does is that this function doesn't trigger until the window's done loading. So that means the DOM will have loaded. This code will run after the body tag has loaded up. But this is a little not intuitive. So there's an even simpler way. And the last way is what you can do is you can add a defer tag. So this defer tag just says to the script, just don't run this till after the DOM is loaded. That's, to me, my favorite solution. It's clean, it's simple, and it works. Let me just see here, app.js. Oh, I cleaned this out, so let me get back to where it's just the console log. There we go. And if we go down here, and it works. Okay, so that's the basics of just sort of linking the script file. So going forward in this video series, we will work out of this JavaScript file that's linked to the HTML file. And then the next lesson we'll actually learn how to grab individual nodes. So that way, if I want to get that, because right now I could use this h1, and this grabs the h1 as we saw in the console log. I start from the body and I keep working my way down, and I can manipulate that h1. So I can say, hey, now that I have the h1, I want to change the inner text property, and we're going to say that inner text property equals. So I'm going to get rid of this console log. The inner text equals cheese. And if I go back to the body, see, it turns to cheese. And there's two ways to change the text. There's inner text, and there is text content. They both end up changing the same thing. Cheese. But it would be much easier if I had a different way to grab the HTML. Or grab that individual node. Another thing you can do, before we go into the next video, is you can create variables to hold your nodes. So I can say const h1 equals, and then first grab the node. So this one grabs the node. And then I can just say h1.innerText equals cheese, which is going to generally be the cleaner way to write it. So you're oftentimes going to want to grab a node, save it in a variable, and then you can use that variable to access the individual properties of that individual node. Okay, it's just a cleaner way to get to it, and yeah, that generally works pretty well. But here's the thing, advice. If I do this, generally console.log your variable, just to confirm that the variable is what you think it's going to be. Okay, so see here, I console log the h1, and that just helps me make sure that things are what I think they are. So that wraps up this first video. I'll see you guys all in the next video. Have a good one.